All right. Good morning, everyone. As you know, my name is Will Thompson. I'm the United States Attorney for the Southern District of West Virginia. I'm going to introduce some people up here, even though they're not speaking, starting with Special Agent Jonas Longren of the FBI, Tony Rouse of the FBI. We've got Christine Siccaretti and Tanette Smith from the Criminal Section of the Civil Rights Division, and also Molly Ayers, who's a paralegal who did a lot of work on this case. All right. Last night, approximately 6:30 p.m., a federal jury came back with 3 guilty verdicts against Chad Lester, age 35, of Odd, West Virginia. The convictions were for witness tampering, conspiracy to engage in witness tampering, and making false statements in connection with an assault by other correctional officers that resulted in the death of an inmate. I'm going to go ahead and name his name because it's been very public. Quantez Burks on March 1st, 2022 at the Southern Regional Jail near Beckley, West Virginia. I'm going to give a little backstory of what happened here. On March 1st, 2022, Quantez Burks was savagely beaten to death by correctional officers at the Southern Regional Jail. There was a culture at this jail where guards felt they had the right to do almost anything they wanted to these inmates. At that time, the jail was overcrowded. The guards were forced to overtime. One of the guards convicted in this case actually did cocaine before his shift started that day. The guards knew there was places located within this jail that they could take inmates to where there was no video cameras. They were known as blind spots, and beatings were able to happen with no accountability. They knew and had an expectation that their bosses would help cover for them, and if someone tried to report their behavior, they would have problems with the other guards and bosses. It's almost like the Southern Regional Jail became a real-life version of the Lord of the Flies. I grew up with a strong sense of conviction to protect people who were being taken advantage of by people who were stronger, more powerful, or smarter than they were. I always felt if I could make things right, I should. This was a case where I got that opportunity with the assistance of the people behind me and the people within this office to make things right. We were able to hold those responsible in Mr. Burke's death accountable, and we were also able to prove this at a jail. Defendant, in this case, I'm going to talk somewhat about him, and I'm also going to talk about some of the other guards involved. This is the first press event that we've really done relating to this. Like I said, Chad Lester was the person on trial. He was not actually charged in the actual beating death. He was charged, like I said, more in the cover-up that happened afterwards. Not a lot of heroes at the Southern Regional Jail. There was a lot of people involved in this, either in the beating itself or the cover-up that happened afterward. There's one person, I'm not going to name him by name, but there's one person I think that did stand out as a hero in this case, and that was a young correctional officer, I believe he was 19 at the time, who did do the right thing. He did not feel the pressure from the higher-ups or the other guards to make any type of false statement or lie. He told the truth. He told the initial investigators at the scene, state police came in and investigated this initially, that he wanted to tell them what happened, but he did not feel comfortable telling them that at the jail. He wanted to tell them off-site, and he did. I'm not going to name him by name, but he was one that his parents certainly raised him right. There was other officers involved in this that did not take that same course. However, they did ultimately agree that they did do bad things. And I want to talk just a moment about some of the other officers involved and what they were found guilty of. There's Ashley Toney of Fairdale and Jacob Booth. Their ages 25 and 27. They pled guilty on August 8th of last year to violating Mr. Burke's civil rights by failing to intervene to protect him from being physically assaulted by the other correctional officers. You have Officer Mark Holdren, 40, of Beckley, who pled guilty on November 13th of last year to conspiring with other officers to violate Mr. Burke's civil rights, which resulted in his death. You also have Jonathan Walters, 33, of Rennell, who pled guilty on November 18th of 2024. And Corey Snyder, 30, of Shady Spring, who pled guilty on November 19th of 2024. Each of those pled guilty to conspiring with other officers to violate inmates Quantez Burke's civil rights, which resulted in his death. 2 additional officers, Stephen Nicholas Wimmer of Bluefield and Andrew Fleshman of Shady Spring, each pled guilty on November 2nd of 2023 to conspiring with other officers to use unreasonable force against Mr. Burks. All of those officers who I've named await sentencing. I will say Mr. Lester is scheduled to be sentenced on April 16th, 2025. Faces a maximum penalty of up to 45 years in prison. I want to comment about Mr. Burke's family. They were, how can I say, very cooperative with this investigation. We asked them to do a lot we couldn't share with them early on, even though they wanted to know how their family member died. They were very, very patient with us. I sat with them throughout the trial. I got to know them quite well, and I was really proud of the fact I was able to get justice, and this trial team was able to get justice for them and their son's death. I'm going to mention a couple by name. Kim Burks was Quantez's mother. Kiara Cooper was his daughter. Latasha Williams was his fiancée. And there was probably 8 to 10 other members of the Burks family who sit and watched this entire trial. And they've asked me to give a statement for them. And I'm going to read this as they gave it. The family appreciates everything done by the Justice Department to hold the correctional officers responsible for Quan's death. We hope these sentences will deter others in law enforcement from violating the civil rights of inmates and will prevent another family from losing their loved ones. This is a case that I'm very proud of. This is a case I'm very proud of everybody that stands behind me and everybody who worked on this case. This was a case is why people go to law school. This is why people join the FBI. This is the case of we're protecting people and making sure people get justice. The beating death in this was horrific. I'm not going to go into detail on that unless y'all have questions on it, but it was a horrific beating. There was videos of portions of the beating. Mr. Burks did not deserve to die in the manner in which he did. With that being said, I'm going to open it up to questions. Yes.
The 4 officers that Hi, I'm with W.Va. Okay. My first question is the officers that were charged. How many officers were charged, and what are they charged with exactly?
All right. There's a total of 8 people charged. They were all charged with varying degrees of conspiring to violate the civil rights of Quantez Burks. Mr. Lester was somewhat different than the other 7 because he was not charged in anything directly connected with the beating death. He was charged more in the cover-up that happened afterwards. The other 7, and those were the names I gave him just a moment ago, were actually connected. Either they participated in the beating death or were there while the beating occurred and did not do anything to intervene to stop them.
And so is Mr. Lester's sentencing going to be April 16th?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And I don't have all the dates for all the others. They have been somewhat pushed back because we wanted to wait and see what happened at the trial, and the court wanted to wait to see what happened at the trial. The sentencings are set to occur, and I don't have all the dates in front of me. I can get that to you if you need them, are to occur in the next couple months.
Yes, and so Mr. Lester's charged with mainly just covering up. Correct.
That's a good way. That's a layman's way of describing it. He was charged with what happened after the death and trying to keep the truth from the light of justice, and he obviously failed at that. Okay?
All right, sounds good. That's all I have for now.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, you gave 7 officers. Who was the officer? What was the name of the officer after Stephen Wilmer that you read? I didn't get
Alright.
that one.
After Stephen Wimmer,
Yeah.
and we're going to do a press release, so we'll have all these in there. There was an Andrew Fleshman of Shady Spring. And we're working on getting some coordination right with the press release, but we hope to have it out before noon today.
So what's it like now that at that jail? I mean, is everything settled down now, or is this something that you're going to be keeping an eye on in the future?
Obviously, I think it's something we need to keep an eye on in the future. You have 8 correctional officers who have either pled or have been found guilty by a jury of serious federal felonies. I hope that has sent a message to that culture that existed at the jail. But it's definitely something that, as long as I'm here, I'm going to continue to monitor that.
And you kind of said that there have been other beatings there because they knew about the blind spot. I mean, are you pursuing this to see what else, if any other corrections officers are going to be investigated into those other beatings, or how's
I'm
it
going to give a Department of Justice policy. We don't comment on whether or not there are any other existing investigations going on at this point. But as long as I'm here as United States Attorney, I will continue to look into those. Other questions? Okay.
With today's pressing and everything, especially with the times of everything, you guys, should this set a standard for those who are working in state prisons, just to protect prisoner civil rights, especially those who are in custody, just to protect? Is this like a standard, like, hey, this is like a precedent for you guys?
I think this should be used in their training. I'm not responsible for their training, but I would obviously use this in their training as what they should or should not do. I know we have offered training in the past, I think through the use of the FBI, of how to respect people's civil rights even when they're incarcerated. We've got some people facing some very serious time on this. Rightfully so. I mean, they killed a guy. They killed Mr. Burks. They should face a severe penalty for that. I hope that this is something they take for all the correctional officers, not only in this state but across the country, that people's civil rights should be respected. People don't deserve to be beaten to death, and this was a very savage beating. This was an ongoing beating that lasted several minutes. That should not be happening in our jails and prisons.
And then my next question is about the family. What is the status on the family as of right now, as far as the statement that they sent?
Like I said, they stayed with us throughout the entire trial. Spoke to them this morning, or actually had somebody from my office speak to them this morning. Obviously, they're very sad that they lost a family member, but they are pleased with the fact that we were able to seek and get justice for them, and perhaps show that Mr. Burke's death will have some meaning, and that hopefully it will prevent future incidents like this from occurring.
All right. I think that is it for me.
All right. All right. Anything else? All right. We will be doing a press release on this. I hope to get it out by noon, and we'll make sure everyone here gets a copy of it. And thank you very much for coming today.